Production funding for Flying Squirrels Insider is made possible in part by Virginia College Savings Plan. Save for tomorrow's higher education expenses with Virginia 529's 4 flexible tax-advantaged college savings plans. Details at virginia529.com. And by the Greater Richmond Chamber Save Low Fares campaign. Richmond is in danger of becoming one of America's most expensive airports again. Flying AirTran, Southwest, and JetBlue supports airline competition. Details at savelowfares.com.
Laying out with a headlong time. Did he make that catch? It's Lawless. And Lawless with a miraculous catch.
Duran kicks and fires.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out with a changeup. And the Squirrels are the champs in the West.
Welcome back to Flying Squirrels Insider, the show that takes you behind the scenes of the Richmond Flying Squirrels. I'm Anthony Oppermann, alongside my broadcast partner and co-host Jon Laaser. And Lace, it's hard to believe. Already one homestand in the books for the Flying Squirrels and a successful start not only on the field for the Squirrels at home, but also off the field at the gate.
One Flying Squirrels Insider also in the books for this ball club ops, and it's hard to believe that's the case as well. It's just such a frenzied pace, a great pace leading up to that home opening weekend, and you just hope that everything cooperates, Mother Nature being a big part of that, but also the turnout from the community. And just coming off that rush of the opening weekend as we taped this Flying Squirrels Insider, it was just a tremendous atmosphere all the way around, from the opening night sellout and then to the crowds of nearly 8,000 the next 3 nights and into Sunday. So you go to a lot of places in the Eastern League and throughout minor league baseball, and they have great atmospheres and environments, but really I've never found anything quite like the Diamond, and it's so gratifying being a part of it, as we both are and as our entire staff is and as the whole community is, of putting together the events and the entertainment that go into ultimately those experiences. So as we sit here today, a successful beginning, and we have the entire baseball community in Richmond to thank for that.
Successful start to the season for the Flying Squirrels, both on and off the field, at least at home, and hopefully a successful start to this episode of Flying Squirrels Insider. When we come back, Lace and I will talk a little bit more about the Squirrels' start to the season. We also have a really special segment. Dave Machemer, the skipper of the Squirrels, mic'd up. And speaking of mic'd up, welcoming the voice of the Diamond, Jimmy Barrett. That and more here on Flying Squirrels Insider. And as we continue here on Flying Squirrels Insider, we'll take a look at the start of the Flying Squirrels 2012 campaign. And welcome back in my broadcast partner, Jon Laaser. And Lace, unfortunately for the Squirrels, a bit of a slow start on the road. The club dropped its first 3 games. And speaking of slow starts, it was certainly that for a number of the club's top prospects. Outfielder Gary Brown, shortstop Ere Adrianza, and catcher Tommy Joseph. But maybe not necessarily a surprise that I don't think anybody in that home clubhouse was 100% shocked by that, because of the fact that it is a big jump from High A San Jose here to Double-A Eastern League.
Well, you mentioned not shocked by that, and also not worried by that, I don't think either. It was asking a lot of all of those prospects and the entire Flying Squirrels team to go to that environment in New Britain, particularly on the travel schedule that unfortunately was just due to constraints on the calendar this year pertaining to the close of spring training. And going from the balmy environment that is Scottsdale, Arizona, up to what was a very frigid New Britain stadium, and facing, let's not forget, a very capable Rockcats rotation first and foremost, but also bullpen that was capable of exploiting some of the things early in the season that guys are working on offensively. So again, it wasn't a surprise that Brown, Joseph, and Adrianza struggled a little bit in that series, and it's also not a surprise that they look more and more comfortable as the team has come home and into that warmer weather and into that more supportive environment at the Diamond.
One thing that certainly is the case for those guys, they're figuring some things out, they're making some adjustments, and that's definitely encouraging to see. And speaking of encouraging to see, the veteran guys, the guys who've experienced the Double-A level before, they're not surprised, and they're certainly helping to contribute as the Flying Squirrels turn things around from that 0-3 start. There were some guys right in the middle of the lineup, guys that are repeating the level for a second time, some a third, fourth time, that are really helping to key that.
That's the way it's supposed to work. And when you construct a roster, as the Giants minor league staff has done, that's what you hope to see. You hope to see the guys like a Juan Perez and a Wes Hodges coming back to this level for a couple of the guys for multiple seasons now, and not only to produce and to pick up the team offensively, but also to guide the way for these younger players and show them how to do it, so to speak, not only on the field, but off the field as well, because there's rigors, there's a difference to the travel in Double A as opposed to Single A, and there's just a difference all the way around. So you just hope that those guys are able to carry their load and a little bit more at the beginning, and certainly the guys that are back for a second year or more with the Flying Squirrels have done that. It's a great makeup in the clubhouse ops with those guys because they're willing to do that, and you don't always see that with some of these veteran guys. They want to be more self-centered, and you have to be sometimes in this game, but it's been great to see those guys, and I don't want to say carry the offense entirely because there's been contributions as well from the top of the order, but certainly carry the bulk of the load as this team has had some success in the win column.
You know, you talk about carrying the load. And how about the start that left fielder Chris Dominguez has got off to? And yes, I did say left fielder Chris Dominguez. He's in the outfield this year as opposed to third base as he had been in years past it. For Chris, through the first couple of weeks of the season, he was right there in the discussion for Eastern League Player of the Week honors at the top of the Eastern League in batting average, hits, runs driven in. I mean, Chris has been all over the place here to start and making some adjustments early in the season, taking the ball the other way. That's probably the most encouraging side.
It is, and we'll start with the offense because the conversation with Chris Dominguez is always going to start with the offense. He's got one of the most powerful bats, if not the most powerful bat, in not only the Giants system, but also when you look at all the National League West and the apparent affiliates, probably the best power prospect in any of those. So what's encouraging from Chris Dominguez over the first couple of weeks of the season is he picked out a couple of pitches, and he has been able to pull those balls and drive those balls, but the bulk of his base hits, as you mentioned, Ops, have come to the opposite field. He's using the alleyway in right center field. He's using the foul line down the right field line, and that is the most promising thing you can see in a power hitter, to get their mindset to that proper place where they use the entire field. Now, defensively, that's where I've been the most impressed because I knew the offensive adjustments he could make and probably make relatively quickly. Defensively, when you ask a guy who's been exclusively an infielder for the last couple of seasons and watching the ball come off the bat at third base or first base occasionally, it's a different animal than doing so in left field, particularly at the diamond. And Dominguez has handled it remarkably well, with but a couple of exceptions in that New Britain series. But not only has he been adequate in left field, there's been times where he's been downright outstanding.
It's very early here to start the 2012 season, but you could kind of tell a little bit just by looking around the league, looking at some of the rosters and the makeup, who is going to be able to contend. And again, it's early. Rosters do change. There's going to be turnover with injuries and promotion and those types of things. But there are certainly some intriguing rosters from different clubs in the Eastern League. And let's start with the Western Division first, Lace, the Flying Squirrels' own division.
Well, let's start with the two clubs that the Squirrels have seen first in the Western Division, the Altoona Curve. And it's a bit of mix of the last couple of years for Altoona. Of course, they were the Eastern League champions in 2010, where they had a bunch of gritty-type hitters that would just work you and grind you to death. They've got a couple of those this year, but there's also some gaps in that lineup where I think they're going to be around 500 or somewhere around there trying to find that identity. Bowie Bay Sox, much the same. They are a lot like the Flying Squirrels, where they've got those top prospects. Manny Machado springs to mind, who is an all-world shortstop. But also, you look at some of the other guys that are back for that Bowie Bay Sox club. I think they're going to struggle a bit with their starting rotation, particularly at the outset of the season. They don't have those dominant-type hurlers that you like to see that can really take advantage of this cold weather and knock the bat out of people's hands. So those two clubs, which the Squirrels see the most, probably right with them. I think all three of those clubs are going to start looking for that identity. Is it going to be the offense, or is it going to be the pitching staff that carries the way for the ball club early? But the Akron Arrows, Squirrels haven't seen a ton of them over the last couple of years. You look at that roster, it's filled with guys like Tim Fedorov, who, and along with TJ McFarland, are off to great starts, and I think they're going to be at the top of the division, probably setting the pace for the first few months at least.
Certainly have here to start the 2012 campaign. And speaking of pace setters, Flying Squirrels, unfortunately, have faced two of the hottest teams in the Eastern League right off the bat. Of course, losing 3 of 4 in New Britain and then taking on the Reading Phillies. Both of those clubs off to tremendous starts, Lace, and we've remarked in the broadcast booth as well These are two teams that it doesn't look like they're necessarily going to have a lot of promotion, a lot of movement, and if they can stay healthy, keep these core players intact, they could be at the top of the standings to stay.
Particularly the Reading Phillies, because you know a number of these guys very well, having served as the voice of the Arphils back in 2009. But you have a guy like Michael Spadali who's going to hit .330 for you, and you know he's not going anywhere. He's going to be in Reading throughout the season. And you add to that some of these younger guys. It's also a prospect-laden roster in Reading. It's interesting because you've got, I talked about the mix with some of the other teams. This is a true blend. It's about a 50-50 split. But again, like the Squirrels, you've got those veteran guys that are more than willing to help out, and they're helping out on the field. So I do believe, along with some of the power arms that they have in the starting rotation, that they are going to be probably setting the pace not only for the Eastern Division, but the Eastern League as a whole. New Britain, I just like the makeup of that club. They are a gutty bunch offensively, but the arms that we saw, the Squirrels saw, out of the bullpen, they're impressive. And literally one after another, guy coming in, you're seeing different things. You're seeing an array of styles and arm angles, and that's the toughest thing to adjust to. Certainly the Squirrels had a difficult time with that, and I think the rest of the Eastern Division and Eastern League is going to have a problem with that too.
It's a veteran group of arms there in the New Britain bullpen, and for the Rockcats, some arms that were certainly highly thought of in different organizations as well, including former Flying Squirrel Daniel Turpin. We say all of this and continue to stress there's a long way to go here in the 2012 season, as we're first now coming up on the end of April. Not quite as much time left, though, on Flying Squirrels Insider, but coming up next, we have an absolutely outstanding segment for you. Dave Machemer, mic'd up. Ever want to know what's going through the mind of Mac? Well, you're about to find out here on Flying Squirrels Insider.
Production funding for Flying Squirrels Insider is made possible in part by Virginia College Savings Plan. Save for tomorrow's higher education expenses with Virginia 529's 4 flexible tax-advantaged college savings plans. Details at virginia529.com. And by the Greater Richmond Chamber Save Low Fares campaign. Richmond is in danger of becoming one of America's most expensive airports again. Flying AirTran, Southwest, and JetBlue supports airline competition. Details at savelowfares.com.
Welcome back to Flying Squirrels Insider. We have changed venues here to the Diamond and Apparel. We've gone with the more casual approach here, as I'm joined by Flying Squirrels manager Dave Machemer. And Mac's going to give us an inside look today at how the team prepares for a day game against the Altoona Curve. And Mac, what do we have in store for the boys today? Looks like we're about to take batting practice.
Well, first of all, it's a beautiful day here in Richmond, and we're going to do a little BP. We have already gotten loose and through a little bit, so just a matter of getting ready with the bats, and so we can go kick some butt today.
This is going to be a fun segment because a lot of people don't recognize how much work these guys do before the ball game to get ready for first pitch. So that's what we're hoping you're going to be able to give us a glimpse of today. And, of course, your personality as well, which I know the fans will enjoy.
Try my best.
Dave Machemer, we're going to be hearing from him as he approaches game time today, taken to the lineup card and all that good stuff. All ahead here on Flying Squirrels Insider.
What was that pitch you hit for a home run? Why would the guy throw you a first pitch changeup? What? What'd he say?
Ask him.
His bad. The guy's tearing us up with fastballs in, sawing everybody off, and he throws Johnny a first pitch changeup, and I'm thinking, what did you change up off of? There's no fastball to change up off. He throws, and the guy comes back to the dugout, and he goes, what'd you hit? And he goes, I think it was a fastball. It was 84 miles an hour.
Here through their walk-off and hero program, Budweiser will donate money for every Budweiser walk-off win. Please stand and raise your bundle.
What? If I could walk from the third base dugout to coach third, I'd be out there. But I don't want to embarrass myself walking out to the third base coaching box. Yeah, Altoona and Reading, I'll be out there.
Well, what happens when you got to run down the line and send?
I can do it. I've got it wrapped in hot stuff on it.
You ever see him do the bunny hop? One foot bunny hop.
I'm going to do a 1 foot bunny hop on the umpire today. I had to get a walker to get out there. That was Segway. If I can get a Segway, I'll be out there today.
You go after an umpire on a Segway.
That'd be great.
He can't run from you.
That'd be the best. All these.
Last round of 5. Here we go.
All these beep beep songs. Ba 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 beep bop. Hear it?
They're all the same.
They're all the same, except the words, and most of them aren't good words. Thanks.
Make sure it's right. Barrett, you messed it up this morning.
Yeah, I'm all screwed up. I didn't sleep all night. I'm going to give you this card. We're going to walk out and see the umpires. And just the one on this side, when we get out there, I want you to kick him in the shin, okay? No, I'm just kidding. Come on. No, I meant the one on the other side kicking the shin. No, I'm just kidding. He was the one that was umping last night. And we're going to give it to...
Let me get a picture, Alex.
To Mr. Max here. Come on, Alex. Come on over here. Give it to Mr. Max. This is Alex.
How you doing? I'll shake your hand, too. Alex?
Yeah. I see you, Max.
How you doing, Alex?
Oh, Joe. Hey, Ramon. How are you? Nice to see you. Michael, how you doing, man? Nice to see you.
How you doing? How are you?
This is Mr. Ryan right here.
Nice to meet you. Pleasure to meet you.
Boy, you got a smile out of her. I couldn't. No, we just watch and make sure guys got a good rhythm, and if there's anything we see that they're kind of changing with their hand position or their stride, we kind of elaborate on that with them and make sure they feel comfortable with what they're doing.
Here, let's see what you got.
Oh, Lord, we got a lot of first pitches. Oh! The Mayan connection. Mayora, Maya. The Mayas and the Incas. More Flying Squirrels Insider next.
As is our goal throughout this first season of the show, we want to introduce you to the folks that you see and hear at the Diamond. And our guest today who joins us in studio, you hear. It's the booming baritone that is surrounding you at the ballpark. We welcome in the voice of the Diamond, Jimmy Barrett. And first of all, Jimmy, thanks so much for being here.
Glad to do it. I don't know which is crazier, though. You guys having a television show or having me as a guest on the show?
Well, we wanted to do both of those things with the first couple of shows here today, because all the voices that you hear but you don't see, and of course, you were the longtime voice of Tiger Stadium at the big league level, also the University of Michigan and their basketball program through some of those incredible years at the 90s. And again, this entire community in the RVA hears you every morning on WRVA. But when we came into town, the Flying Squirrels, and I know you and I had a conversation, you get up in the morning at like 3 o'clock or something insane like that, and I didn't think there was any chance in the world that you'd have interest in coming back. I know you love what you do, announcing the ball games at the stadium, but what was the reason, outside of my sunny personality, that you decided you wanted to come to the ballpark every night again?
You know, Lays, I really, there's something about baseball I miss doing, and I think enough years had gone by where I'd kind of forgotten about the whole thing about losing sleep. It's like giving childbirth. You don't remember the labor pain after a little while, so you go ahead and have another baby, and then you feel the labor pain.
Excruciating, yes.
Exactly. So time had passed. I kind of missed the game, and it was a chance to get back and do it, and I could see that the Flying Squirrels were going to be something a little bit more special than your average minor league ball club.
Jimmy, all that time at Tiger Stadium, just talk about that experience and maybe how it compares and how it differs from your experience now at the Diamond.
The similarities are more close than the differences, other than the size of the ballpark, obviously. Tiger Stadium held about just shy of 50,000 people, even more at one time. So you've got a big cavernous ballpark with a speaker system that's kind of set so it goes off at different ranges so you don't get the delay effect like we have at the diamond.
Novel concept.
Yes. So you don't get that little delay between the time you begin speaking and the time you actually hear yourself come back. But in a lot of ways, the ballpark at the diamond is much more interactive. You know, you're much closer to the fans from the perch where I sit.
Right.
You get more of a fan reaction. You can feel what's going on. You can hear how you are sounding in the ballpark a lot easier than you can in a big stadium like Tiger Stadium.
Have you adapted your style at all? I think maybe at Tiger Stadium, like you mentioned, it was more historic and a little bit more low-key. We obviously are not low-key. We're not trying to be low-key, but I've noticed that you've added a little flair to it along the way as well. Is that new from that, or did you do that in Detroit?
We did that in Detroit as well. Now, they had gone from the very staid, now batting number 6,
right.
You know, very
Jeter.
Yes, very old school type of approach. And I was brought in order to change that. So we began right from the get-go. So it's pretty similar to what I do at the Diamond now.
Well, and again, we challenge you with that delay with the speaker in the outfield. It's one of the unfortunate things about the ballpark, but actually you've got it down to a science now. And I know one thing.
Plug one ear.
One thing one challenge that we share, both in the radio broadcast booth and for you in the public address booth, is pronouncing these guys' names. Now, our feedback is delayed, in that when we butcher one, we don't hear about it until after the ball game. Yours is immediate.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask, I know you've had some interesting names throughout the years, both with the Tigers and the road clubs that came through. And I bring it up because we've got some challenges on this roster for the Flying Squirrels.
RA is the biggest, I think.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
and I'm still working on it.
Yeah, I am too. In fact, I haven't been able, I have his name written out phonetically on the sheet, and I haven't been able to get away from that yet.
Right.
Every time I do his name, I look at it because I don't have it in my head. And I know if I don't look at it, I'm going to mess it up.
I saw him smile up at the booth the other day, though, so I think we're getting closer to getting it right. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Maybe by the end of the season?
Maybe.
Might have it
All-Star
down.
break's my goal.
Yeah, but there's been worse. When I did University of Michigan basketball, first game I did was a game between University of Michigan and the Russian national team. Every single name, impossible to pronounce. The only good thing about it was that nobody knew if I was making a mistake because nobody knew how the name was supposed to be pronounced. So I thought, if I'm messing it up, at least if I do it the same way every time, I'll be okay.
You know, Jimmy, John brought up your hectic schedule and waking up so early to do the morning show. How do you balance it? I mean, how do you make it work?
You know, you just try to make the most out of the time that you have available. I'll get maybe 4 hours worth of sleep at any given moment, and then I'll make sure I get a nap in before I have the next game. The thing that makes it tolerable, you know, from a physical standpoint, is that we're usually here for a week and then we're gone for a week. So it's not like I'm doing it every day. If I had to do that every day, it'd be an impossible thing to keep up with. But a week at a time I can do.
I imagine, and actually I know this for a fact, you've worked with some great radio broadcasters, starting with Ops and myself throughout your career. I imagine it goes us, 1 and 2, and then
Of
Ernie
course.
Harwell, 3.
Yeah.
But
Close
no,
3.
I wanted to get your thoughts on Ernie Harwell. For those that didn't know who he was or didn't know his broadcasting style, he was one of my heroes growing up. I'm so envious you got to spend as much time around him as you did, and unfortunately he passed in the last couple of years,
Yes.
and no longer one of the great voices of the game. But just wanted to get your memories of him and what he meant to the Tigers, but also baseball broadcasting in general.
Well, you know, as a kid, growing up in suburban Detroit,
Right.
you know, and following baseball the way I did, I would go to bed at night with a transistor radio underneath my pillow. And that's what I would fall asleep to, is listening to Ernie Harwell do games. And one of Ernie's signature calls is when there was a foul ball and a fan would catch it, he would say, "Caught by a man from Ann Arbor."
I find myself doing that, by the way. I did that with Midlothian the other day.
And as a kid, I would go, how did he know that guy's from Ann Arbor? How does he know this? So, you know, to me, he was a legend. And part of the reason why I wanted to do the Tigers to begin with is because of growing up as a kid and having some of my earliest memories of quality time with my dad was going to the ballpark and going to the ballpark in the late 60s, early 70s. And to him, that was just such a huge deal that I ended up getting that job. But the other huge deal, of course, was to get an opportunity to meet Ernie. And I started working at WJR in Detroit in 1986. I think it was 87 that the Tigers won their division.
Right.
And they were playing the Minnesota Twins in the playoffs. The last game of the regular season, they had the clinch on the last day of the regular season against Toronto, and Frank Tanana was pitching. And so I went down there, and Ernie said, "Mr. Barrett, how are you?" As he was prone to call you Mr. or whatever. "Why don't you come watch the game in the booth?" I said, "Really?" So I went in, I saw the entire game, standing right behind Ernie Harwell while he called that that last play and that last out that got the Tigers into the playoffs.
And you stood there
like a house by the side of the road.
Exactly. That was his trademark call.
Yeah.
You've got a couple as well, and I know Ops has a favorite amongst them.
Yeah, Jimmy, I couldn't let you get out of here. At least letting us give us a little bit of taste of the diamond, here in the studio. I would love to just hear a Juan. I'm not even going to try. Juan Perez.
Now batting number 2, Juan Perez.
I've actually heard him. He mimics you on the bus
How
as
does
he
he do?
introduces himself. This isn't quite as good, but it's close to as good. Speaking of, it was a bold move on our behalf to bring a guy on. We've never had you on the radio broadcast, by the way, and that's not changing, because that was one thing I learned in broadcasting school was you never bring a guy onto your airwaves that has a better voice than you. Well, we're losing that battle, and now as people know, he's also a more attractive individual than Anthony and I. But we soldier on. Flying Squirrels Insider, installment 2, just about done here tonight. But we do want to let you know that throughout the summer, we will be appearing regularly on WCVW at 10 or 8 o'clock on Mondays, and also now on WCVE on Saturdays at 5. Jimmy, thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure, Liz. Good to see you.
Jimmy Barrett, the voice of the Diamond, Jon Laaser for Anthony Oppermann and the rest of our crew saying so long from Flying Squirrels Insider.
Production funding for Flying Squirrels Insider is made possible in part by Virginia College Savings Plan. Save for tomorrow's higher education expenses with Virginia 529's 4 flexible tax-advantaged college savings plans. Details at virginia529.com. And by the Greater Richmond Chamber Save Low Fares campaign. Richmond is in danger of becoming one of America's most expensive airports again. Flying AirTran, Southwest, and JetBlue supports airline competition. Details at savelowfares.com.